Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Marko Kasic. He's the founder and executive director of FundLife, a grassroots for social profit organization based in the Philippines. Welcome to the show, Marko.
Thank you so much for having me, AJ. Very much looking forward to our discussion.
Absolutely, very much. And we'll be talking to you about this whole business of doing good, larger good, greater good. Everybody wants to do good. Everybody wants to change the world. And several people within all these things want to change their life first and not the world, actually in the name of doing good. So we'll talk about that. So first, to understand from you, you talk about these things, about where one's money goes in terms of your charity, if it goes, and there is a dark world out there. So first, to understand for the audience, Marko, how do one believe that you are different than so many others that are down there, about whom you say that there is a lot of corruption?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, AJ. I think we live in a world where there's just natural mistrust. We're bombarded with information. We have often, our leaders are not often the most transparent, and there's a lot of scandals around it. And obviously this extends to the NGO world. And I encourage anyone who, wants to donate, wants to make any kind of impact, to really understand what the issue is that they're trying to solve. And that really starts off with impacting their own communities. So FundLife, the organization that I founded, we're actually embedded in the communities where we work. We're 100% locally driven. All of our staff are from those communities. And for us, that's very important because, like you said, if somebody is working with us or making some kind of contribution to our work, we want to make sure that that contribution is going to the ground. We don't have any offices overseas. We don't operate as an international NGO like so many others.
Right. Thank you for that. Just want to have as much transparency, as much of understanding for the audience who are going to listen to it, who are watching it right now, who will listen to it on podcast, and who will also read about it in blogs, that the person that they are listening to, they know about the person, his background, and also as much information as possible so that they can make their own understanding of what the information has been shared by the person. And that has become my duty as the podcast host to do this and to bring that transparency from all sides possible. Even in my case, I try to do that. If there is anything that needs to be told, I haven't done any sponsored event till now, but it is very much certain that if I do anything related to that, it will be very, very clear. And that is where that trust is required. So let me understand from you, Marko. You are in Indonesia right now, Bali, but your base is in Philippines. But you are an displaced, where you were a child refugee displaced in ex-Yugoslavia war. How did this journey from Yugoslavia to the present day Philippines happen, and related to FundLife? Want to understand that, and also you are into doing good for so many people. Who was it that helped you, or none did? I want to understand that, because if nobody helps you, you can tend to get cynical and go anywhere else. But you are into this whole thing of doing good and making an impact for the society.
Yeah, you're right, AJ, and I think it's a very personal choice. I mean, this is my profession, but also there's obviously an element of my personal experience of growing up in a country that I wasn't born into, and my parents were forced to emigrate because of conflict. So I think I have a deeper reason for doing what I do. I understand people growing up in marginalized conditions, Philippines or else. I think for us being repressed and being marginalized, That's a universal problem that so many children suffer from, whether it's poverty, whether it's conflict, disasters. But I honestly think if you've been this kind of work, kind of deep, the work can be quite isolating, it can be lonely, because like you said, we're exposed to the dark side of this industry, and sometimes it's very easy to get jaded. Like I said, because my generation, the generation after mine, we've grown up with leaders that have unfortunately built a reputation of being disingenuous. So often it's easy for young people to get jaded, and I think our solution has always been, instead of complaining about the system, let's create a better way. So FundLife is an extension of that. It's very easy to complain, but sometimes it's very hard to create. And so we're trying to improve the existing systems. They are what they are. We can't get rid of the establishment. All we can do is try and work with them and provide solutions which provide greater impact. That's all that we try and do.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely, Marco. You believe, that business can be a force for good. But when you set up your NGO, there were not many takers. When is it that businesses, even genuine ones, they come into the picture exactly because initially you need the funds when you need them the most. When you make a name, then everybody comes in. What is it that drives business to social work, social organizations? What is it that they want? What is it that you give to them? Where is that? You want to connect the boardroom and tree huggers, and is that possible? Are they both going to meet the right way, or are there other interests involved? Because you talk about a whole lot of corruption by NGOs when you went to Philippines and you saw things on the ground, and you know how this NGO sausage was made. We'll come to that more for that, but to understand from you is that how one can, businesses can be a force for good, especially when somebody is trying to do real good on the ground.
Yeah, and I think the answer here is meeting them in the middle. I think we have to be pragmatic, that businesses are set up to generate shareholder value. They're there to maximize profits. They're not set up to solve social issues. And I think many NGOs, they go in with a moral argument. How can you generate billions of dollars or millions of dollars in revenue and then not give anything to the poor people? Well, that's not the function of business. The function of business is obviously to survive and to make profit. So we have to meet businesses halfway. We have to give them something that will add value to them, whether it's social capital, social currency, whether it's employee engagement. We have to understand that it's an interaction and a transaction. Of course, some businesses are different. If it's a private business, then the owner has a lot more accountability for how he spends the profit. But if we're talking about traditional shareholder value business models, then we have to be very pragmatic on how we work with them. So it's really understanding what is the challenge for the business, because most business leaders, they do want to do good and give back, but they are hampered by their responsibilities as a CEO. So our job is to create value proposition where they can do good, but also do well at the same time.
Point understood. I guess that is one challenge, that even if as an individual one is good, the system within businesses are such that you have to be accountable for many things. But what about NGOs? We keep on hearing stories that there is this NGO sausage is made. How does that work? Means where does businesses can have compulsions? What compulsions do NGOs have who are set up to just do good? What is that? And how, help me understand. You are for social profit. You are doing this work. What is this for social profit? How do you explain things to a general person for in terms of for profit and not for profit, who are fully there? How do you justify that angle to a normal person who is coming to you for donation or want to be a part of this your charitable drive?
I think for us, it's about creating the right narrative. I think the traditional NGO model has been to portray children that are coming from poverty or from conflict as victims. And traditional NGOs, they try and what sometimes is called poverty porn. They try and shock and motivate reactions from people in the sense of donate to this child because if you don't, they will potentially die or suffer. So you can alleviate their suffering. And so with that, it creates a level of dependency from donors that they have to keep on giving to support the NGO. And then also this idea of dependency from the public, that if you're doing well in life, you can alleviate your own guilt by giving some of that money to charity. So it's a very colonial model, imperialism, looking down, top-down giving. And so for us, it's about reversing that and trying to create the potential of these children, trying to celebrate children for what they can be. And so with us, of course, we're not trying to foster dependency from donors. We want them to invest in these communities so that they can end up being self-generating businesses. So for us, the NGO model should eventually transform into a social enterprise model where these communities can stand on their own.
Okay, okay. How help us understand, even I want to understand, is that people generally think, for-profit NGOs are, eating a lot of money into their expenses and for paying salaries. How does that work? How do I know that, okay, this is a good for-profit NGO and this is a not so good for-profit NGO? And forget about the pure social work also. There also, we keep on getting to understand, even in India, about government's views, that there has to be more transparency about so many NGOs. How do I distinguish? How do I understand who is the right person to give my hard-earned money to?
You're absolutely right. And the point that a lot of people mistake is that they think a not-for-profit doesn't actually have paid staff. It does. The only difference is that if you're a not-for-profit, it means any revenue that you collect or any donations, it doesn't go out of the charity, but that money can be absorbed by travel, by wages, by meetings, by all these top level executives who often act as consultants. So often what happens is all of that money hardly ever gets down to the bottom. And you mentioned we have several projects that we've worked on in India, and there's a mandate actually by government for companies to give 2% towards charitable activities. And again, it's questionable where that 2% goes, because is it going to potentially help the business in other areas or not? So I think the distinction has to be made. It's not whether the NGO is for profit or not for profit. It's about governance. It's about transparency. It's saying, if this year this NGO has received $100,000, how much of that is going exactly to the groundwork, and how much of that is going towards the salaries of the CEOs? And like I said, FundLife is 100% locally operated. I'm not involved with any of the projects or the operations. It's all done by local staff. And unfortunately, too many NGOs, once they get big enough, they expend a lot of their money on marketing, on generating more revenue, and the people that often suffer with that are the ones on the ground.
Right, Marco. I want to understand that initially for you, it was very difficult to get any partners. And then when the partner came, the first partner was UNICEF. How did that happen?
Yeah, so FundLife was essentially operating without any staff as volunteers for over 3 years. Unfortunately, we were working in the Philippines when Super Typhoon Haiyan struck. It was the most destructive typhoon to ever hit land. And we found ourselves in a position where UNICEF had a lot of international donations, and they were looking for partners to carry out work. So it was only by the fact that there was this real-time emergency that we were able to get funding with UNICEF. And since we were able to show the work that we could deliver for those 2 years, that in itself attracted more partners to come in and support the work. And now we've developed, obviously, we've been there for over 10 years, still developing those projects in the same communities that we started in.
Right, right. And initially, when I asked my first question, you said it has to be a middle ground. What is the best middle ground here for all the people, except for middlemen, for all the people, in terms of business, in terms of the right kind of NGOs, the right kind of people donating the money, for profit, non profit. How does, as I said, that what is the middle ground without any middlemen? And who are these middlemen? Where do they come in? Who sends them? Why do they come in? Who is benefiting out of that? And my question is, a lot of young people, they are very conscious about everything. And they are the inheritors of the planet in the coming future. They would want to understand, where their money is going. If you are paying even 1 rupee, that money has to be transparency, even in, as transparent that this is the my rupee and this is the path it is taking and I can track it. How does that happen? Talk about the middle ground, talk about transparency, and not about money going into some dark world.
Yeah, I mean that's the silver bullet almost. How do you create more engagement? How do you connect? And I think what you're talking about is disconnect. There's a disconnect between the executive level boardroom to the ground, and those middlemen unfortunately are the black hole of middle management. So for example, if somebody who wants to make a genuine impact in the community wants to have a discussion with a CEO, the CEO is too busy to have that discussion. So he would direct you to the head of marketing, who would then direct you to the head of CSR. And then all of these messages get lost because all of a sudden, if you're talking to marketing, they're asking what's the visibility for the brand. If you're speaking to CSR, they have no budget. So it can get into this black hole of middlemen, as you mentioned. And I think the way that we've been able to navigate is to connect with people that already want to make a difference. There are too many companies out there who are just happy with the status quo. They have something like an international NGO. Every year they donate money to them, and they're happy with that because they're not in the business of charity. They're in the business of whatever they do. But there are still good people out there, for example, entrepreneurs who, like you said, who are young, who are maybe set up their business 5 or 10 years ago, and they've grown up with this distrust of traditional systems. Those, I think, are the leaders that we want to connect with. And then, like anything, it comes to moving away from ego. I think ego is the obstacle. I think that's the big thing that stops collaboration because people think that they can do everything by themselves. But in reality, we need to work with each other. So those are the two biggest obstacles, I think, conformity and ego.
Right, right. And how do you maintain these things in your organization? Transparency, as well as, because now you are associated with very big people and doing some great work, ego can creep in. How do you manage that part in yourself? And because now you are also you have also founded the Girls Got This, a female armor fund life. So help us understand.
Yeah, I think for me personally, I still, although you mentioned now I'm in Indonesia, I'm here for 2 weeks for a project, I still very much am connected to the communities we work with. So it's about seeing the impact day to day. And I think I see so much work that still needs to be done because we hear the stories. We unfortunately see the promises of the leaders and the politicians, and then we see the reality. You have a lot of people talking about the sustainable development goals. You have people talking about ending poverty, providing quality education. But then when you see how education is actually delivered to so many children, it's really shocking. And you can't help but be humbled by the fact that we are so privileged as people who don't have to worry about where our food is coming from, where we go to school or where we go to work, where we sleep at night. These are all things that we take for granted. And I think we need to move away from this culture of hashtag grateful. I think we need to transform from talking about impact to actually actioning impact. And unfortunately, we have too many people now who live 24/7 under this sort of social media spotlight where they want to be seen to be doing good, but they're not actually doing good. They think making a one-time donation or putting a hashtag on their Instagram all of a sudden is some kind of impact. But like anything, it's like raising a child. It's a lifelong commitment. You don't sign up for 6 months, you sign up for a lifetime. And so I think we need to call out some of these people who claim they want to help, but then the reality is, behind the scenes, they're not actually doing what they say they're doing. And again, for me, that's what I believe in, and this is my work for the last decade. And so that's the mission that we're still driving with.
Absolutely, absolutely. They are perhaps social washing their resumes, wanting to make themselves sound. There is these words like greenwashing. So this could be their social washing, that you try to show that you are doing good, and then you will shine. But it does not. It does not. It does not work that way. It is all about authenticity. One thing I wanted to understand from you, Marco, is that a lot of crowdfunding is happening, and many of it is actually working good for a lot of people. But what I want to understand, and there have been questions even on social media about this, is that if you are saying that somebody needs an operation, and they say that they need, say, 5 lakhs or 10 lakhs of rupees, but you keep on generating money, 30 lakh, 40 lakhs, that project is over, it should get closed, and write a message on the social media, this particular, but it keeps on happening. What is it? Who are these people? What is it that they want? Why do they keep this in spite of perhaps doing good actually? But this is not very difficult to understand, and they are making money out of it.
It's a great question. I don't know why. I think basically the NGO system has also become a business. And the issue that some people in the industry talk about is that poverty is good for business, because if you're an NGO that's working to end poverty, you don't want to cannibalize your business by ending poverty. So like I was saying, there's this attraction to create dependency and to make people think that you still need help. You're not really solving the problem, because like you said, if people keep donating to solve a problem, then we should be seeing progress on that problem being solved. But often we're just kind of regurgitating. It's like a hamster wheel. It's help us this year so that next year we can come back and ask for more money. And this is why it's not sustainable at all.
Absolutely, absolutely. I guess there is so much to understand about this whole business of doing good, and I'm sure a lot of people are doing good. But for a lot of people, it has also become an industry. If it is in the right way, it is understandable, and it is the way we can have a lot of growth and a lot of impact. But if it is in the wrong way, that is where the problem is. Be that as it may, be that as it may. I would like to understand now that there is much to learn from you, and also now that you are in a good position, what is it that you want to do? What are you planning? Is there anything that you are planning to do in this part of the world, India?
Yeah, just to go back to your point, I would say if there's one piece of advice I would give to people is don't donate your money to anyone until you've done your due diligence. It's much better to go to the community with people that you know, people who have been living on the front line. So often I would want people to be very distrustful of organizations until that organization or that person that is leading the organization can be proven to be doing good work. And in terms of our engagement with India, yes, we've tried. I was there in 2016 to try and do a wash project around hygiene and sanitation for young communities. It's a part of the world that I'm very fascinated by. I've been a couple of times, and there's actually a very good movement of NGOs that we work with that are using sports as a tool for development, for empowering young people, girls especially. One is called Magic Bus, one is called Oscar Foundation, working in Mumbai. And I know these organizations personally. They do amazing work. They're on the ground. They're working with children. And because they use sports, it's a way to empower children. We don't talk about them as victims. We talk about children as potential champions. And sport gives them that confidence to find out what their passion in life can be.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, what do I, how can people connect with you if they want to learn more about you, about your organization, about the work that you are doing, and if possibly, if they want to be associated with your cause, with the way work you do?
Yeah, the easiest way, I think you shared my details. We have our website, fundlife.org. I'm also on LinkedIn if people want to connect with me personally. I'm happy to have a discussion about anything in this space. And yeah, just check out the website and we're pretty easy to find. And like I said, I would really encourage anyone listening, if they really want to make a difference, to do it in their own communities, because that's where they can see the impact themselves, unless there's something they're very passionate about. So I would encourage anyone to do their due diligence, and happy to connect with anyone that wants more information about our specific work.
Wonderful, wonderful. With the resolve of making the difference in the right way and taking the middle path in the right way, putting aside all the middlemen, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.